everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking about how I made this one shoulder tank top. So the first thing I did was started with the best fitting top in my closet. You can start with your best top with or without sleeves, it doesn't really matter. And that for me was the foundation of creating this pattern that required no patterns. Anyway, you get my point. I didn't use a pattern, I used a blouse that I already owned and I cut around it to make this top. It's the easiest thing ever. It took no time at all. I'm probably gonna make at least 2 more. I love one shoulder tanks, I love one shoulder dresses, so maybe next I'll do a dress. But yeah, I think that looks really good as a bodycon dress, and I don't necessarily have the body I want to put in a bodycon dress. Anyway, stick around, I'm going to show you step by step what I did. Really simple, really easy to create this tank top if you want to have like a nice visual idea of how I created it. Somewhere towards the end of this video, I'm also going to be showing you how I wrap my Obi belt for my outfit, so stay tuned for that. I made everything actually. I made the top, the pants, and the belt. So if you want tutorials on the belt and the pants as well, I'll be happy to do it, so let me know. Stay tuned for the tutorial. Okay, so the first thing I would do is fold the fabric. So you can see there, it's folded. So basically you're looking at cutting 2 of the same thing at the same time. You'll see as we go along. So first thing, fold my fabric. You want to make sure that most of the stretch is sideways. As you see here, the top, from top to bottom, there isn't a lot of stretch, but sideways there's a lot more stretch. So you want to make sure that the majority of your stretch is sideways. So this is your folded fabric. The next thing you would do is, as I said, with the majority of the stretch going sideways, place your best fitting knitted shirt right on top. And you can get something that has the same kind of stretch if possible, but most of us have a knitted top or a stretch top, tank top in our closet. And then I go around, I actually straighten out the bottom so it goes straight across, but I cut about 1 inch extra all the way around. Now 1 inch gives me a lot of wiggle room, so I'm showing you with my scissor here where I would cut 1 inch all the way around. Now you can use a measuring tape or a ruler to measure this and mark it with a fabric pen or tailor's chalk or washable marker. So I would go all the way around 1 inch, coming down and creating a square, or you can create the same kind of curved hem. It's up to you, right? Just make sure that you give yourself an extra inch going all the way around. Now once I've cut that out, what I do is I usually come here. Let me see if I do it from the other angle. I think it'll be better. Right, so I usually come here 1 inch over and I cut the top part 1 inch across. So remember, we have cut out our pink. All right guys, so I was left with these 2 pieces. Honestly, I cut this months ago. I'm not even sure if it will fit. But this is what I was left with. You can see the kind of curve that I did around the top. It's not a deep curve. I think probably coming down a little more would be a little more sexy, but because I want to be able to just double this over and zigzag stitch, I'm just going to leave it just like that. So I am going to put wrong sides together. Yes, I'm doing French seams because in my stretch fabrics I tend to prefer to do French seams, even though it's very unlikely that they'll fray. I just think it looks neater and more professional. So I'm going to put these together with wrong sides together. Okay, so I have wrong sides facing each other, and remember I have all of 1 inch to play with. So I'm going to go in first along the top and along the sides, right? And I'm gonna stitch a 1/4 to 1/2 inch in. So just to show you, my zigzag, or the width of my zigzag here, is 1.5 and the length is at 2.5. So that's my personal preference. So after everything is stitched, I ensure that all threads are cut and the seam is the size I would like. And if anything got a little bigger than I'd want, I trim that off. And then I turn the garment inside out. So now that it's inside out, I have right sides facing, and you can see the stitches here, and I can go ahead and pin along the edge to ensure that I'm encasing the raw edge underneath, and I'll stitch along the top, the sides, and the other side. So this is just to show you what I'm talking about. So as you can see, we have no raw edges on the inside. The stitch will go right along where I've pinned, and then when I flip it inside out, I'll have the right side with no visible threads or anything hanging over. Alright, so now that everything is stitched up, I have started to work on the neckline, so the cross neckline, and the underarm. So let me show you how I do the underarm. I make sure that the seam here is going towards the back. Ready? I snip it a little diagonally so that it's not as bulky. So this is my stitch. Make sure that you're seeing it properly. It's my stitch right there, and then I just snip it diagonally. What I do next is I make a fold as small as I can, and then I make another fold as small as I can, and then I pin it. So this is about a 1/4 inch, and then I pin it with the pin going up so that when I'm stitching, I have the fabric on the outside of the sewing machine. So I do that to make sure they're about the same, which they are. Now, a lot of people will use a hem gauge to make sure that the hems are exactly the same. You can do that. But once you have decided what you want, you really can just measure using your eyes. And yeah, looks good to go here. And then I pin it, and I do that all around the hem. And after that, my garment is finished. Again, I'm going to use the same zigzag stitch. If your pins are falling out of your fabric because it's too silky or anything like that, this is a tip. I double the pin twice. So I pin in, out, the same pin to make it more secure. As a tip, you can wrap your belt at the top of the belt or in the middle. I'm doing it here at the top, experimenting with a kind of peplum look. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.